So first of all, good evening, everybody. My name is Dr. Devendra Paul. I am medical oncologist at the Annual Medical College at American College Institute, Ludhiana. And first of all, thank you, Dr. Sachin. So I'll be discussing about the optimal management of ER-positive metastatic breast cancer. Till date, we have been treating because luminal type A metastatic breast cancer, as we all know, it's not a very uniform disease. We have a spectrum of disease depending on the clinical burden. Some diseases are very aggressive, and most of the patients have a low burden of disease, but around 10 to 15% they do have a disease which goes into visceral crisis very quickly. So the treatment has to be optimized. Till date, we have been treating the patients depending on the patient heterogeneity and the disease heterogeneity. The patient heterogeneity depends on the age, the menopausal status, the preference of the patient, the genetics and the pharmacogenomics, and the disease heterogeneity means that patient whether he has a visceral or non-visceral metastasis. But the trend which we are seeing over the last 5 to 7 years is the emergence of tumor biological heterogeneity. So tumor biological heterogeneity is the thing in which we see the various mutations which are happening in the patient's tumor. More specifically, ESR1 mutations, PIK3 mutations, AKT/mTOR, and the activation of HER2 pathway. And of course, there are certain other resistance mechanisms which are also there. So the biological heterogeneity of luminal tumors, the principal characteristic of the luminal group is the luminal expression signature. In the luminal A subtype, the most frequent mutation is the PIK3CA, which is seen in 45%, followed by the other rare uncommon mutations. And then in the luminal B, we have the T53 followed by the PIK3A. And in addition to the P53 mutations, several other events may also intervene in the other steps, and they also lead to the downstream activation of various other pathways. In patients who progress on the AI treatment, the most common mutation happening is the ESR1 mutation. And as you can see, there are multiple predictive markers for the endocrine therapy, but till date, the only marker which has a level of evidence is the hormone receptor status. And this asset, there is no biomarker which can help to decide between whether to give tamoxifen or the aromatase inhibitors, and also there is no biomarker to decide for or against the use of fulvestrant. Again, the same slide showing the biological heterogeneity, and now we know there are multiple pathways which can be activated, and now we have certain drugs which we can target them. For example, the CTLA-4/6 inhibitors and the PIK3 inhibitors which are coming into picture. And there are many other mutations which are and applications and molecular pathways which are under trials and which are under studies, which we in the later years we will see whether we can target them. So at present, there is no validated predictive biomarkers other than the hormone receptor status, and which helps us in deciding the treatment. And the CD4, CD6 inhibitors or the mTOR inhibitors which have come into recent picture. So they are the recent advancement, but till date we have only the hormone receptor status is the one thing in which in such patients which is predictive of response. Alpelisib should only be used in the patients with PIK3 mutant tumors. Next slide, please. So the visceral crisis is defined as the severe organ dysfunction as per the signs and symptoms and the laboratory studies and the rapid progression of disease. Visceral crisis is not a mere presence of visceral metastasis, but it implies the important organ compromise leading to clinical indication for the most rapidly efficacious treatment. Next slide. So there are many trials in the ER-positive advanced breast cancer which are brought into the premenopausal women. But despite this, we all recommend that a young woman with the ER-positive advanced breast cancer should have adequate ovarian suppression or ablation, and then she can be treated in the same way as a postmenopausal women with endocrine agents, with or without targeted therapies. The adequate ovarian suppression for advanced breast cancer premenopausal patient can be obtained through bilateral ovarectomy, continuous use of LHRH agonist, or by ovarian function ablation through pelvic radiotherapy. Although this modality is nowadays not used more frequently. So the efficacy of ovarian suppression must be initially confirmed analytically through serial evaluation of serum estradiol, even in the presence of amenorrhea, especially if an aromatase inhibitor is being contemplated to be administered. So the question which is the most important question right now in such a scenario is when to use CDK4/6 inhibitors and whether endocrine therapy versus chemotherapy for advanced cancer has a place, and how to integrate the new molecules which are there like the PIK3 inhibitors, and also there is some evidence for the use of mTOR inhibitors also. So the question is, should CDK4, CDK6 inhibitors should be used first line or second line? There is no debate for patients who relapse on anti-AI therapy. These patients should be considered for fulvestrant plus CDK4/6 inhibitors. However, patients relapsing off endocrine therapy or who present with advanced disease, there is evidence that we can use single agent aromatase inhibitors followed by fulvestrant and CDK4 inhibitors, or we can use upfront AI with a CDK4, CDK6 inhibitor. So these are three pivotal trials for the CDK4, CDK6 inhibitors, which we all know. The Paloma-2 study with the palbociclib, with the MONALEESA-2 study with the ribociclib, and the MONARCH study with the abemaciclib. And as you can see in all these trials, they have a very good efficacy data, and all have shown a very good PFS benefit and OS benefit now maturing, and all have frankly, they have changed the paradigm of treatment of advanced metastatic cancer ER positive. Next slide. So depending on all this data, how can we identify who does well on AI alone, who is a candidate who will not be doing much better on the hormonal treatment? So the patients who have endocrine naive disease, who have a low volume or non-visceral disease, and who have a lower grade and less biology, they have more benefit of AI with the CDK4 and CDK inhibitors, and especially there the hazard ratio is quite good. Whereas the patients who are less likely to do well are those patients who have relapsed recently on AI, or those patients who have a high grade disease, or those who are in a visceral crisis. Like we all know, those who are in a visceral crisis, they are not so likely to respond to hormonal treatment only. This is the cross-trial comparison of fulvestrant plus the CDK4 studies, including MONALEESA-3, MONARCH-2, Paloma-3. In all, we can showing the matured PFS and the OS data, and in all, you can see the hazard ratio is quite significant, and now the curves are quite separating, and the data is quite, I can say, quite bold and quite mature now. And there is no, but although we don't have any direct comparison between all these three drugs, but yes, of course, the data as far as their single use is concerned is quite promising. So a first-line treatment for advanced hormone-positive breast cancer, if the patient is AI sensitive, that is endocrine naive disease, or more than 12 months post the adjuvant AI treatment or prior tamoxifen treatment, the preferred treatment is aromatase inhibitors plus a CDK4, CDK6 inhibitors. And if the patient is premenopausal, we have to give ovarian suppression along with that. But if those patients who are AI resistant, that is those patients who relapse on aromatase or on hormonal treatment less than 12 months of stopping, that is within 12 months of stopping the AI, we have disease progression. In those, we have the recommendation is to use fulvestrant plus CDK4, CDK6 inhibitors, and in a premenopausal lady, of course, suppression is there. But anytime if there is an organ failure like visceral crisis, till now chemotherapy is the thing which we use all day always, but we have some data maturing now that even in those cases also there is some data to show that there is efficacy of CDK4, CDK6 inhibitors also. This is just a slide to show that even post CDK4, CDK6 inhibitors resistance mechanism there. You can see the slide from there. There are multiple pathways which can be activated in a patient who progress on CDK4, CDK6 inhibitors like the NF-kappa-B, PIK3, AKT, and Wnt beta-catenin pathway. So these are things which are under evaluation, and coming few years, we might have more targets to be achieved over here. In the end, just a few slides regarding the integration of a few more molecules which are coming into picture, the everolimus and the alpelisib. Regarding the everolimus, the pivotal trial, the Bolero-2 trial showed that in a patient's everolimus plus exemestane post 2 lines of hormone resistance, there was quite a good amount of PFS benefit of 6.9 months as compared to 2.8 months with a placebo versus exemestane. And on the right side, you can see that the rationale of using the mTOR inhibitors is when the disease progresses, one of the main pathways for activation is the PIK3 followed by the AKT. So AKT is a site where the mTOR inhibitors can react, and they can inhibit the downstream signaling pathways, leading to survival benefit. There were studies regarding the use of concomitant use of everolimus with exemestane, tamoxifen, or fulvestrant also. But the license indication is still with the use of is the combination of everolimus with exemestane only, because in that setting the data was not that convincing. So everolimus is used along with exemestane only. And regarding the new drug on the block, the Alpelisib, there was a trial, SOLAR trial, which showed that in the patients who had the PIK3CA mutations, the combination of Alpelisib with fulvestrant was significantly better as compared to placebo. You can see that the median progression survival benefit was almost to the tune of 6 months. And this is the important thing to remember is that regarding the PIK3CA mutation is that the PIK3CA mutation can be tested even on the baseline blocks also. We don't need to have a fresh biopsy to check the PIK3CA mutation, because the PIK3CA mutations, they remain stable throughout the course of the natural history of the disease. And similarly, in the patient who didn't have the PIK3CA mutation, there was no benefit whatsoever as compared to placebo. So Alpelisib plus fulvestrant is now recommended, and Alpelisib is just launching in India also. And so Alpelisib plus fulvestrant is a new option to be used for the patient who have PIK3 mutations. So in conclusion, the current non-randomized evidence suggests that endocrine therapy plus CDK4, CDK6 inhibitor should be used first line in advanced cancer, and fulvestrant as the endocrine therapy of CDK4/6 inhibitors when patients have relapsed on AI, or otherwise AI as endocrine therapy. Everolimus has evidence for multiple endocrine therapies, but we should consider for the ESR mutation for this. And Alpelisib only has data with fulvestrant and has not been investigated post everolimus. In the PIK3 mutant, optimal sequence of Alpelisib versus everolimus is unknown. That is, in the PIK3 mutant, we don't know whether giving everolimus prior to Alpelisib has any advantage or not.